Thank you very much, and I appreciate you guys coming by. I'm going to talk about birding in San Mateo County, but I tried to make it as local as possible, and specifically about Belmont. And Sequoia Audubon Society, we have a problem with the name. We've had the name since, I think, 1949. And nobody knows that it's the birding local Audubon chapter for San Mateo County. And so that's who we are. We have one employee and all the rest of us are volunteers. Yes. And there's a number of things that we do. We have about 80 volunteers that work for Sequoia Audubon. And we exist on our expenses from donations, a little bit from membership. A lot of what people are interested in, I put on here conservation activism. And a lot of what we work with, you may have noticed in our county, we have development for biotech and office buildings. And a lot of cities want to get in on that. And a lot of it's by the bay. And so we work with the cities and we work with the companies a lot, especially about whether something should be built or whether, if they do build it, the kind of windows that they have. Because that is the biggest hazard for birds. You know what the number 2 hazard is?
Cats.
Yes. And we won't talk about cats, but this is something. We have people that work on the conservation all the time. We also work with all the different parks. And we work with the open spaces. We work with the different county parks, state parks. And so because that's involved with birding. We also have free field trips. And we don't have them in the summer because birding kind of slows down around the bay in the summertime. But starting in September, they start up again. There's about 8 trips a month. And these are free. And you don't have to have any level of expertise. They have all sorts of different physical abilities that you could do. And we even have every other month, at least we have a beginner's trip. And so that's specifically designed for children and adults that want to get introduced to birding. And the good thing about our field trips is that the leaders are not only experts, but they treat you like a regular person and don't treat you like you're stupid. And that is one of the most important things. And they're a lot of fun. We also have free monthly speaker meetings, and that is held at Beresford Park at the San Mateo Garden Center. And we do that similar to this. We do it in person. And if we have an out-of-state speaker, it might just be on Zoom, but we try to get it in person also. And we get speakers from around the country and local experts. And so that's every month. And also, again, starting in September again. Now, those are free. And I keep saying everything's free because it is. So if you don't want to spend any money doing it, that's the best thing. We also have a monthly e-newsletter that we send out that tells about local birding activities. And again, we're centered almost entirely on San Mateo County. Some of our field trips go to the Sierras or to places like the Pinnacles, but most of them are within the county, either along the bay, up in the hills, or in the ocean. Because San Mateo County is one of the most diverse birding places you can find. We have so many different habitats. We also have special activities. One of them is, yes.
I see this change.
Oh. I don't know why. Because it's changing on my screen.
On your screen, and you're sharing
Your screen
I should
sharing.
get rid of this slide.
It says your screen sharing.
Mhm.
Try unsharing and resharing. I don't know why it's doing that. Okay.
Do it.
No. Say stop share. And let's start over.
Sorry.
Technology, sorry, folks. Still not seeing it, huh? Any Zoom people here?
It's changing now. Do
Changing
you want
now?
to go up to the, there you go, from current slide. Do you see that right under the word home?
No.
Right there.
Yeah.
It's showing on your iPad.
But it's not showing here.
Oh,
It's not showing in the room.
no.
Okay.
Do you have a Mac or a PC there?
It's a PC.
Okay,
Next.
so there's,
So we're just seeing the first slide.
I think you have two displays, monitor one, monitor two.
Yeah, so we're seeing the wrong one. That's probably true. Display. That's a good point. So that would be having to do with. Yeah, so we are seeing the wrong monitor, the wrong display. No, it's not the Zoom thing, because the Zoom is working. It's-
right, we're seeing slide 3 on the Zoom.
yeah, so it's something to do with this setting.
Yeah. On my PC here, it would be the key that's also the F8 key to somehow connect with the,
An F8 key.
yeah, something that looks like a computer and another screen or something.
Yeah, there should be another screen. It's not the Zoom, it's this thing is only,
Yeah.
is,
Oh,
Who would like to work for the Zoom? Not me. I wanted to talk about cavity nesters because if you ever go to a park and you see bird boxes up, those are mostly for bluebirds. And also we have them for barn owls. And sometimes other birds like swallows get into the bluebird boxes, but that's okay. But those all have to be maintained by volunteers. So we run that for the county. And the reason is that bluebirds like to nest in dead trees, holes in dead trees. And a lot of people get rid of dead trees. So that is one of the things that are special programs. We also have Christmas bird counts. And we have 2 of those in San Mateo County. And one of them is called Crystal Springs, which is over on this side of the county. And the other one's Año Nuevo, which is over by the ocean. And the Crystal Springs, a lot of times, birders like to count. And the number of birds counted in our Christmas bird count in Crystal Springs is in the top 10 in the United States. Up there with Texas and Florida and things. So we really have a wealth of birds here. Finally, it shows membership. And you can see it's not that much. But a lot of our activities, that if you come to our speakers, if you go on the field trips, you don't have to even be a member. So that is, we try to make it as accessible as possible. And I titled this, It's a Free Country. And I really mean that regarding birds, because the first 2/3 of my life, I paid no attention to birds. And you are free to pay no attention to birds. But some people, they just want to look at the birds in their yard and set up their yard so that they have stuff for the birds. Other people just want to know a little bit more about birds when they're outside. They don't care about their yard. Other people are what are called patch birders. And a patch it can be a park or any place where you go and look for birds fairly regularly. For example, I live right by Coyote Point in San Mateo. And so I go there every Monday. It makes Mondays a lot better. And that way you get to know the local birds a lot more intimately. And so that is one of your choices in the free country. Also, you can go on our field trips. You see all sorts of different habitats and different birds, or you can go further afield. And I've birded in a number of states, in Europe and Africa, and I haven't been to South America or Central America yet. So, but you can go as crazy as you want, in other words, or you can stay sane. But I want to emphasize that because people say, well, I don't really do it enough to consider myself a birder or to be interested in birds, but I find that most people are interested in birds at least a little bit. So I like to emphasize that anyways. Now, a lot of the stuff that I talk about, you can find on our website, and we're going to look at that in a second. But we have something on there called the San Mateo County Birding Guide. And that is something that was created by our former president. And it goes into most of the birding sites that we know about in the county. And I listed the ones within Belmont here. And you can see Belmont doesn't have a huge number of what birders call hotspots, but there are plenty of parks in Belmont. And so that is something you can do. And on our website, this is the birding guide. And you can see why San Mateo County can be in the top 10 in the country. These are the different sites that we have that we've described within the county. And you can see we divided it by color, blue being the ocean, green are the hills, and yellow the bay. But you can see what a wealth we have. Most of Belmont would be considered either in the foothills or in the bayshore. And also on the coast side, we have descriptions of all the beaches and all the parks that are over there. And in the foothills further down, when you get up on Skyline, there's a lot of open spaces that have a lot of birds that you can't find down here. I want to look at one place which is called Sem Lane. And I don't know if anybody's ever been there, but this is the other side of 101. And it's along a slough there. And a lot of the really expert birders hang around there because there's rarities that come there for some reason. And in each of those dots on the map, we have a description, we have some pictures, we have the description of what kind of birds you're going to find there, the rarities that you find there, how to get there, the interactive map, how much you have to pay to get in there, the posted hours, the hazards, which hazards can generally run like ticks or humans in certain parks. And we also try on this one, we don't have it, but we try to put accessibility data in there for how accessible the park is. And then it has some photos of birds in it. So this is really, if you're just starting out, I'm going to show you a more detailed place you can check. But if you're just starting out, this is kind of a good way to get to find out where birds are or where good places are to go just to walk. And that's on our website, and I'll show you the website later. If you get further into birding, you'll find something run by Cornell University called eBird. And a lot of people that are into birds are into statistics, into counting, into making lists of birds. And this is set up for us because I do like to list. And one of them, or you can see the places in Belmont that are listed on eBird. And this is a listing of birding hotspots everywhere in the world. And so Belmont's included in that. And there's a few more places on here than was on our local birding guide. And you can see across the freeway also the Belmont Sports Complex. Actually, that's a bird area. And if you go into eBird, and here's statistics, you know, these are total species that I've observed, which aren't that many. It'll also tell you every time you go on a birding trip, if you follow eBird, you enter the data onto eBird. And so it's a huge citizen science project. And it tells you how many birds that you've seen this year, how many you've seen this month, how many you've seen in the United States, more than you ever wanted to know. But it also has hotspots. And which one was I going to put? Oh, has anybody ever heard of Sheep Camp Trail? That is a trail that goes from up by the running course and down under 280 and down to Kenyatta Road. And if you look this up, tells you how many species have been seen there ever, 104. And you go into details, and this is when it gets personal because it puts everybody's name on there. Who's been there and when they were there and how many birds they saw under recent visits. It also tells the top eBirders for that specific hotspot. And you can see I'm number 5. But it also says, whoever's been here the most lately, it tells you exactly what birds were seen and what date. And so you can see nobody's been here much since May, but in the month of May, this is all the birds that were seen there. And you can see I was there April 20th. And so this is something that if you're into this, you're free to use this. And this is also a free app.
Does it show a map where the sheep camp trail is at?
On eBird, it does not. But it'll tell where it is. And I talked about citizen science. It shows eBird here and a couple other things. I was speaking with one lady about the app Merlin. And that is something to, it does keep data on that, but it's something you can take pictures of birds and the artificial intelligence within it gives you a suggestion of what it is. And if you're just starting out, it's really a good thing to use. I use it when I don't know when something is. And that's what it's called, Merlin. And it's free. So many free things.
Excuse me 1 second. Some folks are mentioning that they can't see the map on Zoom and that the slides aren't advanced. Oh, no. Whoop. Links are not showing on Zoom.
I see it. What don't they see?
So I think what we'll do, maybe if we're having some technical difficulties, Doug, maybe if you could send us the PowerPoint and then we could share it directly with the folks that are attending this evening.
Oh, I sure will, but I'm not going to be going to any more outside links. So.
Okay. Okay.
The other one showing here is iNaturalist. And that is another free app that I really like using. And that's whatever kind of living thing, where it can be dead, you can take a picture of it and it'll give you a suggestion what it is. And a lot of times with birds, I know with the Merlin, it's about 80% accurate. The iNaturalist gets a little more difficult because it gets into all sorts of things like plants and worms and fungus and lichen and anything, and snakes and anything you want. But it is really a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun for kids. And they have one specifically for plants that's a little easier to use called Seek. And so that's also free.
I'm going to jump in one more time. If you've got a hand raised, if you could just on virtual, if you could just type your question into the Q&A, that'd be great. And then we'll have some time for Q&A at the end, but we want to make sure that Doug gets through his presentation.
Okay. So that is something that's intimately hooked to birding. And I want to talk for a little while about what you can do in your yard. One of the things people like to do, and I use bird feeders. I gave up on hummingbird feeders because it's too much work for me personally. But I do use seed feeders and suet feeders. And I like using sunflower seeds. You can use black oil sunflower seeds, which they sell most places. And you can also have, shown to the left of that, the shelled seeds, which are a lot more expensive, so it's a lot less messy. But I really think that if you like to look at birds in your yard, it helps to feed them. And a lot of times people ask about avian flu and different viruses, and we have not had any advisory to take down feeders here. So that is affecting other areas of the country a lot more. And also you can grow things in your yard. I would prefer to attract hummingbirds by, they really like, it sounds simplistic, but they really like red flowers. And if you put different kinds of red flowers in your yard, the hummingbirds will come. And also, the birds are there for the kind of bugs that are in your yard, which also gets rid of your bugs. But it is something that if you have plantings in your yard, if the birds like what you planted, it doesn't much matter whether it's natural or native. But it does help to have native plants. But if you've ever gone to a big store and looking for native plants, it makes it very difficult to find them. So there's a lot of specialized ways you can find them. But the other thing that I find helps for birds in the yard is water. Since we live in a desert most of the year, even if you put out anything, just a pan of water, and you'll get the birds. So even if you don't want to go through the hassle and expense of bird feed, I think you can put out water. But it does have some kind of responsibility. And this shows 3 examples. And it's important to follow instructions, and I wouldn't just use this slide, but look it up on the internet if you have some kind of feeder. It's very important for the hummingbirds to clean those regularly, probably at least every week, because that will make them sick if you have dirty hummingbird feeders. And the other thing, if you have a bird bath of any kind, you don't want to use soap to clean it with, because they go in there to get the dust and everything off their feathers. And if they get soap on the feathers, then that messes them up. So you do have to pay attention. There's some responsibility for that. And these are some links of how to find native species. And I just started trying this in my own yard. But there's a lot of native species because the birds will be attracted, especially if you plant things with native berries. And the link shown at the bottom, the CNPS, that's the California Native Plant Society. And that is something that if you go to their website, it is really a place where they can tell you where to go to get native plants and what kind of things you should plant. And it's also on the National Audubon website. And there's a California organization also. But again, as long as something is not bad for the environment, non-native species could be good for birds because they don't really research it. One thing to know about is what happens if you have a sick or injured bird. And one thing I want to point out is that if you have a baby bird that's fallen out of the nest, a lot of people have heard that if you touch the bird, then the mother won't go back to that bird. But that is not true. So you could put a baby bird, if it's really young, back in the, you could take it and put it back in the nest. But a lot of times when birds fledge, you don't really want to bother them because they're just trying to learn how to fly. And you don't need to be bringing them into the Humane Society or anything, you know, if they have some feathers. So it is something that mostly is best left alone. But the Humane Society will come if you have a sick or injured bird. If you have a dead bird, especially if it's a crow, that is something that you would want to call about because, and they have that down, West Nile link at the bottom of this slide, because crows are susceptible to West Nile virus, and they do want to know how prevalent it is in the county. So that is something most of the time, I hardly see any dead birds. I think the crows take care of that. But it is something that the local Humane Society in Burlingame will do something with. Yeah, if they're dead, they're good garbage keepers. I wanted to show, before I end, a couple different pictures of birds from around the county, because there is such a thing as, which is called chasing birds, which is, we have rare bird alerts, and you can go around. And some people, if there's a rare enough bird, some people will fly in from other states, and which is not too environmentally friendly, but I will go around within the county if I feel like it. But it does take energy to do that. And this is our most common hummingbird here, Anna's hummingbird. And we only have, I'm jealous of my brother because he's in Arizona right now where they have 15 different kinds of hummingbirds. We really only have 2 or 3. And if you see a hummingbird in our county, it's almost always going to be an Anna's hummingbird. But that is something not too hard to find. Some other things I've chased, this is something called a great-tailed grackle. And there's really only one place in the county to find them, which is a strange place. It's in the Home Depot parking lot in Westlake in Daly City. And they hang out there all the time and nowhere else in the county. Why, I don't know. It gets very specific. For example, some of the parrots of San Francisco, you can find those only in a certain part of Brisbane. So it gets very local with that. Similarly, this is an unusual egret called a cattle egret. And our usual snow egrets have black beaks. And this one was in an industrial area in South San Francisco on the lawn. And so the birders will spread far and wide when there's a bird that is rare. And this one just happened to be hanging out where you would think no one would want to. These here are red crossbills. And the red one is the male and the yellowish one is the female. And these are sitting on top of a Buddha statue in Skylawn Cemetery up on the ridge. And these are unusual birds. They call them crossbills because their birds are kind of crossed so they can open up pine cones. And these are only going to be up in the hills and usually more in the Sierra. But this is a place, Skylawn Cemetery is a place you can find that. In fact, I'm going to go look for them tomorrow. And I think there are turkeys in Belmont. But these happen to be in Filoli. And if you go up on Kenyatta Road by Filoli, there's usually big flocks of them. But this is something, I'm sorry?
Have them here in the Belmont Library.
Oh, the lady says they have them in the parking lot of the Belmont Library here, so.
Seen once, it was.
Oh, okay. But I think that San Mateo is a good county, is a good place to start birding. Even if you've never, like I said, I wasted 2/3 of my life without looking at birds at all. I could have cared less. And so it's never too late to start. And I think that if you care about birds, I think it's best, they have the national organizations, they have National Audubon, and I think it's best to stick with the local organizations. And because we're intimately involved with the county and it's important. And if you have a desire to volunteer, we have a job for everybody, believe me. Even if you know nothing about birds. Now, I would like to see if there's, if anybody has any questions. Yes.
You need binoculars to do birding?
It's not absolutely required, but I think it really enhances it. Because for most of the birds, there's some birds that'll get really close to humans. Juncos and phoebes, they're comfortable with us getting close. Most of the rest of them, if you get within a certain distance from them, they'll fly away. Now, for binoculars, if you spend $200 on binoculars, which is not that much for binoculars, it's better than anything they had 40 years ago. And so you don't have to spend a huge amount of money. I would spend at least that much. But I think it helps. And once you get them, then you can say you're a birder. Now, we did have a question, what's the difference between a birder and a bird watcher? The original, they're actually synonymous in my mind. And if you want to give your opinion, go right ahead. What is your definition?
At a time when bird watching is what it's called.
And it was contemplative, de-stressing, peaceful and enjoyable activity to go out into nature and remark on birds that you saw. At a certain time, I left my home country and I get to this one and came totally shocked by people who were competing to see birds and counting them, and there was no relaxation in it at all. Everybody was there, because I went on a trip to see the birds, and everybody was there with their binoculars and everybody rush over there. Oh, where's my list? Where's my list? And they'd be counting it off for their life list, and I'm saying, this is not relaxing. So I actually went online preparation to come here to see what the current view was. And I saw several sites that were saying, oh, they're interchangeable. But I was very proud to find that Ontario did make a point of making that difference. And I found the very keywords in their article, and I put them down as bird watching is a passive pursuit, and marveling at the alien creatures, deeply contemplative, and the bird watcher knows how to relish in the truly mysterious aspect of watching nature. Whereas birds, on the other hand, are slightly more obsessed versions of the bird watchers, and other text bits that jump out are numbers are critical for the birder, often compulsive listers, and competitive side. So Was that Ontario, Canada or Alberta? Ontario, Canada.
I would say each country has both types of bird people. And I think bird watcher is still a perfectly good term. It doesn't matter which one you use. But again, I come back to it's a free country. And there's room for everybody.
It just was a big shock to me coming from the sense of being in nature to enjoy nature versus turning it into a sport.
And it's very much a sport in some people's minds.
Exactly. I accept that.
But I also know plenty of people that refuse to make lists and refuse to use the internet or any apps. But I think it's a lot easier to learn when you use apps. But I take your point.
Use the apps.
But it is proven, they've done studies that birding or bird watching is good for your mental health and for your physical health.
There's a question online, are there any good books for Bay Area birds? Do you have a book you would recommend?
I don't have one offhand that I would recommend, but I would look at our website.
Okay.
Because that is, we do have a library section on there. And there are plenty, if you get a book, a reference book that has all the different birds, it's better to get as local as possible. And there are birds that specialize in the Bay Area. I don't know if there's any on the shelf there, but at least specializing in birds of California.
Sure.
Because if you get even birds of Western America, it's too much to learn.
Actually, to that point, and it's relevant to the libraries that work in them. We actually have a little backpack that you can borrow from the library that allows you access to all of the state parks. And included in that backpack, not only is there a small set of binoculars, it also has hiking trails, a book on hiking trails, plus included in it is one of these fold out birds of the locality. So they have the birds and the flowers and what have you. So I give that to a local library.
That's wonderful. I did hear that there was something like that at libraries, but that's wonderful.
Well, there are some that are just getting out the parks, but within the county library system, we have deliberately included this backpack as another option.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
You talked about putting out water for the birds and I'm wondering if you feel that
wherever you put this water, whatever vessel you put it in, should it be elevated?
I have one it's about 3 feet off the ground. And I think that's better just for cleanliness. And I went to one of the hardware stores and they had different bird baths and they were so expensive. You know, I would get the cheapest thing you could, but yes, off the ground would be better, but you can put one on the ground. It's not going to hurt anything. You'll get more squirrels come to it. And that's one of the biggest problems with feeders is that whatever birds like with seeds, the squirrels like it equally. And so they do have some that are effective in repelling that. Yes.
How do you discourage crows from coming into your, might repeat that.
The question is, how do you discourage crows? And crows seem to be everybody's least favorite bird.
Well, they've also come to my bird bath and killed the little birds.
That's possible.
Yeah.
I have heard of only one foolproof way of doing it. And unfortunately, there's a store in San Carlos that sells birding materials, Birders World Garden. And they used to sell, they were fake dead crows.
Doesn't work.
And that's the only one I've heard that works. You must have tall trees.
No, I have a very narrow yard, I have a condominium, but I have a nice yard, but it's narrow. And it does seem when the crows come in, they find that bird bath, so I have many vessels for water. The little birds can just go to the shallow vessels on the ground.
Uh-huh.
Use the taller ones, that seems to be the one that the crows seem to enjoy most. And that's where I have found dead birds.
I'm not sure.
Use those crows from Birders Garden.
Really?
I've used a real dead crow
Oh,
and hung them before they really rot bad. And crows are so smart. When they get that scent and where it's at, they will get away from that area for a good while. If you hang a real alive dead, dead crow.
So a fake dead crow or a live dead crow or a dead crow.
Clean it up once it's dead.
It is a problem because as I understand it, 40 years ago, there weren't very many crows in the Bay Area or geese. And they were in agricultural areas, but they discovered that we have things called dumpsters. And that attracted them. And there's some places like Oracle in Redwood Shores where they roost hundreds and hundreds of them every night. And so how you get rid of that, I don't know.
Geese or crows?
Crows.
Crows, really?
And there weren't many geese around either, but we provided them with lawns and they like it. And they stopped, some of them stopped migrating. And they no longer remember Canada. Ma'am, you had a question back there. As early as possible. A lot of the question is, what's the best time of day to go look for birds? And as early as possible. A lot of the parks open at 8 o'clock, but as soon as it's light and you can see well enough, that is the best, because they're hungry then, they're out then. A lot of times when it warms up, or around here when the wind comes up, they like it as much as we like the wind, or at least I don't like the wind. So I would prefer as early as possible. Yes.
Did you ever hear about a show called on public radio called Bird Notes? It's like a 5-minute little segment on public radio just to talk about birds. Ever hear about that?
I have not heard it. It's on now.
It's on, yeah. I never know when. I should look it up. I never know when. Periodically it'll come up on public radio. It's called Bird Notes. They probably have it online too.
Yeah,
I'll look it up.
I'll check that. They also have a new show on Nat Geo Wild. There's a new birding show. And it's done by the guy that became famous because he got in an altercation in Central Park in New York City. And he has his own show on Nat Geo Wild, if you have that channel. And that is an hour-long show, and he goes to different places around the country and gets into issues of birds and bird banding. And it's very interesting. It's the most detailed show I've seen lately. So hopefully he's making money from that. Yes, sir.
Speaking of banding, have you ever seen banded birds in San Mateo County?
Have I seen a bird that had a band on it? Yes. I've seen gulls on the beach that have bands on them. And we should, I think a lot of the banding is done more in the eastern half of the country in the other flyways. We have the Pacific Flyway, and I don't think the banding is done as much here as it is back east.
What's the purpose of it?
What they do is they put a band and it has an ID of where it was banded. And so they can tell that way. It's kind of taken over by radio transmitters now. They want to know how far and where they migrate and how long they live. And so even if you found a deceased bird with a band on it, it should be turned in. And there's a place that you can report if you find that. Because another way of science. And they try to gauge what they're really trying to do now is see if any kind of climate change is changing where they migrate to and where they can live. Either in the breeding season or in the wintertime. And I don't have an answer to that, but they sure want to know. Because a lot of times the birds can adjust to a certain extent to changes in climate by changing the area that they live in to a certain extent, up to a point. And some do, some expand their range. But a lot of them can be affected. Do we have any online questions?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any owls in the Belmont area? Yes. Owls. Yeah.
Yes.
I have not much. It's very near.
Usually those will be great horned owls. And I get really disappointed in my yard. I've lived in my house a long time. I've only heard the owl once in years, but other places, pardon me?
Aren't owls found more in the hills?
They can be in residential neighborhoods, but wherever there's trees.
They're around Barrett Park a lot. There are large trees on the east side of Barrett Park east side of Barrett Park, and they're in there quite a bit.
Down about a quarter of a mile from here, and a big evergreen with an owl. And you can hear it at night.
One of the highlights of the Christmas bird count over by the ocean is some people, not me, get up at 4 a.m. and go to the parks around Pescadero because they'll find different kind of owls and screech owls but mostly around here it's great horned owls. Yes.
I'm sorry, it's a question.
But what they'll do for a Christmas bird count is they're assigned a certain area and they count every bird they see the entire day. And so and if you signed up for one, I think it's kind of fun to sign up as a beginner because you'll be assigned with more experienced people. And you can always say, oh, I can only do 2 hours, because all day is a long time. But yes, it's actually counting what kind of bird and how many. And with the eBird, that that is a huge scientific database. So it depends, like the lady was saying, how you want to enjoy birds, whether you want to use eBird or not. And it gets kind of addicting once you start using it. But yes, it's counting everything you see.
I'm just so engrossed so when we admiring the bird, I'm not, paying attention to how many there are, but I was wondering if I should be able to start using eBird, but if it requires.
Well, there's no should about it, and there's no requirement.
Okay.
It's a free country.
I'm glad to hear that, but that is a lot of work to counting words and so.
Well, you have to want to do it.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to do it, then you don't have to.
That is interesting.
Yes, ma'am.
I think you're gonna be interested in birds just for enjoyment. And when you go on vacation somewhere else, then look for whether there are good tours there. And they are just for the sheer enjoyment. And if I go to Hawaii, for instance, and get to see the birds there, and they're different, and we know that they are all at risk, so they have a small environment. But it's just a joy to see some birds.
And that way, let the tour guide count the birds, and you don't have to. And a lot of times. Hello.
At Oracle, a couple times we saw the pelicans. Are there, were they just passing through pelicans? They and that we used to call it Lake Larry, but the water in front of Oracle. The water.
It depends. There's brown pelicans and there's white pelicans. And the white pelicans are harder to find. Except in certain areas,
You find them in the lagoon behind the Bay Club.
Yeah.
On the trail, there's a lot of white pelican there.
Yeah, behind all hill foods, you could see them
Correct.
regularly.
So they live around here then.
They spend part of the time here. More common are the brown pelicans, and they come up here en masse from Baja California in the wintertime because there's so much food here.
Where do the white pelicans go to?
I'm not sure. I think they go inland. I think they go inland to breed. And but I see them more if you go over in the East Bay to Coyote Hills. They have a lot of white pelicans over there. But it's pelicans are a good bird because they look like dinosaurs, number one, and they're big. You can see them without binoculars.
It's great to watch them fish.
Yes, I felt bad because I was on a fishing boat once, and the brown pelican kept diving for the hook when I put it in the water. And one time I hooked him right on the pouch, and I was able to pull it off, but I guess they're not too afraid of us. But we also have, there are certain companies around here that do what they call pelagic trips. And they charge for that, but they go out on a regular fishing boat. And they go out to the edge of the continental shelf. And those are, I can only do those so often because they're for 8 hours out on the water. But it's amazing because you see all the birds that don't come into land. And also a lot of whales and things like that out there. So that is something you can do too, but that is really strenuous. And here's another owl, a barn owl, which I think are kind of spooky looking.
Yeah.
And another different kind of birder is a camera birder. I understand that in Japan, they tend to use cameras more than binoculars. They just use cameras. And so that's another thing a lot of people get interested in. They want to take pictures, depending on your camera. Although a cell phone can do pretty well sometimes. So there's all sorts of things you can do. Any other questions?
No, they've already been, let's see, I think we've already went through. That just, thank you. The other ones were books on the problems with the links that we had before.
Right, right.
Are there red-shouldered hawks in the area?
Yes,
I've got a red-shouldered hawk down by the Greek church who's been baying or whatever, crowing or whatever you call it, a call that's just been annoying the heck out of the neighbors.
they go,
And then he'll wait and he does it like every 15-20 seconds. And then he does this for like 2 weeks at a time and he's come back. Is that a call at this time of the year for mating? Or is he in distress?
I don't think it's distress. I think it's communication, either for mating or to chew out the mate or something. But no, that's their call.
So I called the Humane Society about this, said this bird is like really annoying. A lot of neighbors are all talking about it. They said, is he on the ground or hurt? I said, no, he said, there's nothing we can do. So.
I'm sure that's not the first call they've gotten about that.
He's really prominent. He's around the Greek church, the eucalyptus tree in the area over there.
There's one I hear in the eucalyptus trees at Coyote Point every time I go there. Yes. And that's how you can tell that they're there, because you can hear them.
I live close to Twin Pines Park and he's been monitoring that same behavior
Yeah.
for like 2 weeks now.
Yeah, there you go.
He comes into my yard, I watch him on the telephone.
Maybe we can get it together.
I can juvenile, just trying to check out.
I wonder.
But I can't say that.
Maybe it's a big bird because he goes away for a while and he comes back. So
That could be.
No, they like to do it, so they're not in danger.
they're not in distress or anything.
No,
You think it's a mating call? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know, but it's getting a little late for mating. But I think they use it for different purposes. I couldn't tell the difference between their different calls, but they're very loud. And that is a problem that people interfacing with birds, a lot of people, they just see what annoys them. And that's part of the game.
So one of the apps, we could, okay, you can have it, but I think it's Merlin, you turn your sound on and you have it listen and it'll tell you what the bird is.
That is Merlin.
That's Merlin.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think that's interesting. And it also, if you're just hearing one bird song, you can learn the sounds that way. Because again, it's about 80% accurate.
Okay.
And I find it's very useful, especially when you're learning. And a lot of times, if you go out early in the morning and you turn the Merlin on, then you can see how many different bird songs there are in your yard or wherever.
Except every time you turn it on, they stop.
But that one's a fun one to have.
Are the major competitors to the crows seagulls?
The crows have no competitors.
But aren't they? I watch them fight with each other down at Redwood Shores, seagulls and crows. Oh, yeah.
The other thing you'll see crows fight with are hawks,
Yes.
because the hawks will eat the crow's eggs if they can. And so anytime that the crows see a hawk which is bigger and tougher than they are, they'll gang up on them and go after them.
Will a hawk attack a crow, dive and hit them?
Usually they get annoyed and they fly away, because there's just the crows just use their numbers to harass them. And a hawk could, but I don't think it really wants to eat crows. So there's a joke. There's a joke.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you having me here. This has been a lot of fun.
Really good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
So what's the site? The online site is.
Let me put that up.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, you're welcome. I get my pay in heaven.
Trees.
Down here at the bottom of this slide is the our local website, sequoia-audubon.org. Yes, but at the bottom is the link. Oh, yeah, that's the title too.
Yeah.
You're right.
If you're sending us a copy of this, that would be.
This whole thing will be up on the Belmont website, this whole topic recorded, and so will all the other times. There's been a lot of good talks since the last, and they talked about the libraries. And all the cool things at the library. So anyway, so you can go to that, and you'll get a message after this, and it should have the links in it, if not, you can go to the Belmont website.
And if somebody wanted just the PowerPoint for this, how would they get that?
We can put that up there as well.
Okay, good. Yes, it's all free. So hope you enjoyed that.
Certainly.